Guys, welcome to the I Love CVille Show. My name is Jerry Miller. It's Friday, and we are live in Charlottesville, across the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille Network. Thank you kindly for joining us on a glorious day to be above the mud. So much to cover on this network and this program today. We're presented by Skooma Boutique Dispensary, the best dispensary in Charlottesville. It's Skooma Boutique Dispensary, located on the Charlottesville Downtown Mall next to Rapture Restaurant. A lot I want to cover today. I'm going to play some sound for you from yesterday's interview with Michael Payne, Charlottesville City Councilor, who is putting into perspective the slippery slope, of budgetary times in our city as we look to fund many projects, including a $75 to $100 million project called School Reconfiguration in Charlottesville, Virginia. I also want to talk Virginia Senate kiboshing the mask mandate and democracy in action. Foxfield races Bustin balls on booze. And Mayor Lloyd Snook will join us on this program on Monday to talk about the precarious nature of school reconfiguration. Judah Wickower is our director. I think before we go anywhere, it's paramount that we play the sound from yesterday with Councilor Michael Payne on the program. If you have not watched the show we did yesterday, it was one of our best ones yet. Councilor Michael Payne, in clear and succinct fashion, explained the pitfalls of this budget cycle. It was as to the point of an interview as anyone on council has given so far. Watch the show. It's on ilovecville.com. We're going to play 5 minutes of sound from yesterday that outlines the precarious position our jurisdiction is in. And then we will offer our analysis and take on this cycle and ask this question. And it may be an unpopular question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. I have no fear of offering unpopular statements that I truly believe are for the best of the community, and it's this. Is school reconfiguration really the best approach, the best idea for the city of Charlottesville? $75 to $100 million on this, when we don't know what school will be like 10 years from now, and that's when we will see the final project, the final results of this reconfiguration is a decade or more from now. Judah Wickower, do you have that sound ready to go? Yeah. Let's play that in 3, 2, 1. Startling, and it's not being prioritized within this community. That's why I appreciated Councilor Payne's outline so much. What's going to happen here, man? We got a $75 to $100 million project that is needed. No doubt it's needed. We got an educational gap that's gotten worse because of the pandemic. Those are facts. We got an assessment. Let's just use the number 12% for the sake of conversation here. It's a little under 12%, but 12%. Pretty darn close. Assessments have increased year over year in the city, 12%. We got Monique, who was just here, the Happy Cook, talking about the impact of inflation with disposable income. We got interest rates rising. I mean, this is literally a collision of like the worst KPIs possible for families, individuals, couples on the financial margin that don't have disposable income at their disposal.
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenging budget situation as you outline. I mean, even everything as is, you've got Charlottesville, which has had long-standing inequality. I think the pandemic has just accelerated that even more. As you said, 12% on average assessment increases. But if you look at neighborhoods, you have neighborhoods like 10th and Page where the average assessment increase is over 20%. So for the average household, without any tax increase being discussed, you're looking at around $400 on average increase in their tax bill. If you add a 10-cent real estate tax increase on top of that, you're looking at about an increase in 1 year of $800 on average. And certainly there's some folks who can afford that. There's plenty of people whose homes have gone up in value and they also have a lot of income and they can handle it. They can afford it. The problem is there's a lot of other folks who are living on Social Security, retirement, fixed income, working class, who maybe bought their home in 70s, 80s, 90s. You know, in some cases, again, I mean, you see some homes with no improvements having been made, the assessment jumping from $300,000 to $600,000 in 1 year. So, you know, it creates the pressure that we've seen in Washington, D.C., San Francisco, a lot of other cities where longtime residents basically just sell their homes and move.
That's gentrification.
Yeah, and that is a huge driver of gentrification. And the other side of the budget is there's that, and then inflation on top of that in terms of what people are needing to pay. The 10-cent real estate tax increase is eye-popping, and I understand why, very understandably, but just as eye-popping, I think, should be for the community, is that the current state of our budget is even if we increased the real estate tax by 10 cents, we would still freeze our ability to make any substantial new investments for about a decade. What does that mean practically? That means that for a decade, there's no money to fully fund our adopted affordable housing strategy at $10 million a year. There's no money to invest in the next phases of public housing redevelopment in West Haven, Mickey Drive, and other sites. There's no money for the recently proposed Piedmont Housing Alliance affordable housing projects on Park Street. There's no money to expand service for CAT, to implement our climate action planning process. I mean, any policy issue you want to name is frozen. And on top of that, there's no money to really invest in the city departments, which means that operationally, the city is going to find it very challenging to have a workforce that can do all the things that we want to do. And obviously, we've got a lot of rebuilding we have to do already in terms of City Hall. We know there's a lot of deferred departmental requests, staff positions even needed for just implementing the affordable housing strategy. So it's a tough budget situation, and the biggest drivers are school reconfiguration. The proposal is $80 million for one building, Buford. When you get to the second phase of the project, Walker, you're talking about an additional $20 to $30 million. And you wouldn't get to Walker for a decade in our budget situation. And again, that is with a 10-cent real estate tax increase, which we also would have no plan to limit displacement caused by it, because our tax relief program has limits. 10% of people who qualified last year were kicked out. So that's a whole lot, but it just gives a sense of how real the budget crunch is, and how, quite frankly, I think where the budget is right now is not realistic. As I said, I think it's reckless. I mean, to put ourselves in a position where we can't make new investments for a decade. I mean, what happens if you have an unexpected infrastructure need, like Smith Aquatic Center, which had an air quality control issue we had to fix? There's no room to do anything about it. And again, I don't think the public has been fully engaged and aware of exactly what the budget situation is and the decisions in front of us, which is why I'm on here and posted that, is to try to engage the community in that conversation and have people lend their voice to, okay, what do you want to see prioritized? Do you think this makes sense? Do you think it's a good idea to freeze our budget for a decade and increase real estate taxes by 10 cents, or should we look at some other things?
All right, so that's Michael Payne, Charlottesville City Councilor. Mayor of Charlottesville, Lloyd Snook, will join us on Monday. I encourage everyone watching this program, like I have for the last 2 days, to head to Michael Payne's Facebook page and read the analysis of where we stand with the current budget cycle on his Facebook page. Do it now, do it tomorrow, do it multiple times. Please get informed and understand the circumstances, the plight that we are currently in. I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to ask two questions. And we should have these conversations with family and friends at the dinner table, at the water cooler at work, over the picket fence at home, shopping on the downtown mall, shopping in Barracks Road, wherever you may be. And if you think this is only directly tied or associated with the city of Charlottesville and not Albemarle County or Fluvanna or Louisa or Orange or Greene or Nelson, you're just wrong. How the city of Charlottesville goes, all of Central Virginia goes, and I can't say it more clearly than that. Here are the two questions I'm going to ask you. Is a 10-cent tax rate uptick, a 10 cent uptick in the real estate tax rate a good idea? First question. Second question I'm going to ask you, and this is an unpopular question. Is school reconfiguration the right move in the city of Charlottesville? Are we prioritizing Buford and Walker over more important priorities in this jurisdiction? And if we do a $75 to $100 million project, will the city suffer because of it? Furthermore, if we do a $75 to $100 million project and the results will not be seen for 10 years or more, and that's where we're at, 10 years or more for the total completion of the project, what will the educational setting or infrastructure or ecosystem be like? Will we still be learning like we currently are in classrooms, sitting at desks, in person, with the teacher in front of us before a chalkboard? We don't have those answers. So I'm going to offer some perspective on this. First, the unpopular perspective. I'll do a clear analysis on the I Love CVille Network in written form as well. If we raise the tax rate 10 cents from 95 cents per $100 in value to $1.05 per $100 in value, the folks that'll benefit from school reconfiguration are the folks that we're not trying to champion today. We're doing this project or prioritizing the reconfiguration of Buford and Walker because the educational gap during COVID got worse. And we're trying to champion under-resourced kids that are getting left behind in school. And these kids are getting left behind in school for a number of reasons. Maybe they don't have as much financial resources as their peers. Maybe they're single-family parent homes. Maybe they're in a public housing, Section 8 housing scenario. Maybe their parents don't care about school as much as their peers. Maybe they have trouble getting to and from school from a transportation standpoint. Maybe they don't have the best internet service provider to offer the most quality virtual connection possible. There's a number of circumstances of why the education gap has widened. Hell, maybe it's parents sent their kids to private schools and they're learning as normal, and some of the public school kids are not. Maybe it's they're in a multifamily home scenario and COVID has run rampant in their multifamily household, and they have spent tens of days, if not longer, outside the classroom because of this pandemic. It's no secret the pandemic and COVID have had greater damage to families of color and to multifamily households. Those are facts. The education gap in public schools has gotten as wide as the Rivanna, if not as wide as the Mississippi. And it's going to get worse before it gets better. And city school board and city stakeholders in education have said we've got to do whatever it takes to close this gap. And whatever it takes is a reconfiguration project, Buford, first phase, Walker, second phase, price tag, minimum $100 million. Anything that's done from government with projections or estimates is always short. So when they say $100 million, no, it's going to be more. So the thinking is, goodness gracious, we need to serve our under-resourced population to create equity in education. And how we're going to do this is by doing this reconfiguration project, and we've got to do it right now. But it's the quintessential not seeing the forest through the trees. If you utilize real estate as the revenue stream to fund reconfiguration, you're going to undoubtedly push or price out some of the families and students that you're trying to serve. And when the project is finally finished, whether it's a few years from now for Buford or 10 years from now for Walker, the kids and families that will benefit from this are going to be resourced and wealthy. Certainly more resourced and wealthy than the ones that you're trying to service or serve today. And that is just a straightforward analysis that's realistic and common sense based of what's happening. People don't want to have this conversation. And why they don't want to have this conversation is because they're not being honest with themselves. Pipe dreams are not reality. And hope is a bullshit platform for policy. And taking $100 million for a project that's not going to be reality for Buford for a few years and Walker for 10 years is not good policy or governance. There, I said it, and I've been wanting to say it for some time. That money can be spent in considerably different ways that can create equity within our community. Housing, technology, investments into after-school STEM programs, science, technology, engineering, math, to take taxpayer dollars and invest them into endeavors that will not be actualized for a decade is negligent. And I encourage the community that follows this network, and last year we reached 253,000 plus unique IP addresses in Central Virginia. I encourage the community that follows this network to realize we're prioritizing a project that's going to leave the city in an awful position. How can you prioritize a 10-cent real estate tax rate increase at the same time that assessments have uptick 12% on average across the city and 20% in some neighborhoods like 10th and Page that are historically black communities? That is negligence. That is the antithesis of equity. And I very much encourage counselors, Snook, Pinkston, and Payne to utilize a 3-2 vote scenario to kibosh the Reconfiguration project in its current format. Reconfiguration can happen in a remodeling setting that is single-digit millions or much less than the 75 to 100 that's being proposed. And here's another thing that we need to address. You know who the true winners of school reconfiguration are? The true winners of school reconfiguration in this community are a firm with 4 letters in their name. VMDO. They're doing the work. They're doing the billing. they're getting the revenue. The true winners, excuse me, are not the under-resourced family and children we're trying to serve, because they won't live in the community when the project is done. How about them apples? When you take families in a community, in fact, this is what I'm going to do. Neil Williamson of the Free Enterprise Forum. Neil, if you're watching, I want to let you know that I think you're an incredible asset for this community. I'm going to reference an article that's in the NBC 29 today, where Neil Williamson was quoted. Neil Williamson did an analysis or a case study on a home in the city. The average home in the city of Charlottesville has a residential value of $410,000, had a residential value of $410,000 in 2021. So this past year, 2021, city of Charlottesville, the average home valued at $410,000. At the current real estate tax rate, 95 cents, that home pays $3,487 in yearly taxes. If you increase the rate by 10 cents from 95 to $1.05, that home would raise to $4,300. That's a difference of nearly $1,000. Check out the article on NBC 29 now. $3,487 a year versus $305 a year. That's nearly a G-note difference year over year if you increase the rate. $1,000 for families on Social Security, a single parent household, a mom or dad, or a mom and mom, or a dad and dad that are out of work, a Section 8 public housing family, is a lot. It's $90 a month. $90 a month should be positioned in tangible terminology. $90 a month is 2 tanks of gas a month. $90 a month is the grocery bill for 4 to 5 days a month for a family of 4. $90 a month is 2 jackets and 2 sweaters for a family with 2 kids. $90 a month is half of an electric bill for a family of 4. Talk about this with your friends and your peers and ask yourself if this school reconfiguration project is truly the best approach. Councilor Juan Diego Wade, who I have supreme respect for, sir, Juan Diego Wade, you watch the show, you listen to the show. I'm sure this is going to be passed on to you. I have tremendous respect for you, sir. I understand that you ran on a campaign based on this project and prioritizing education. I get it. I understand it. And I truly, truly expect you to vote in favor of this project or a 10-cent real estate tax rate increase to fund this project. And you should, because you are a man of your word, and this is what you're campaigning for. You should do this. And Cena McGill, in a recent meeting with City Council and Charlottesville City School Board, said, and I paraphrase, quote, that I polled my daughter and she said this is needed and it's important. And it's clear that those two are going to vote yes to the increase, into utilizing that increase, that 10-cent increase to fund this project. And that's fine. It's their prerogative and their right. And in their minds, it's the right move. And that's cool. That's democracy. It's a local level governance. But I encourage respectfully, and we'll have this topic and this conversation with Mayor Lloyd Snook on Monday, who he also knows I have tremendous respect for. I encourage Mayor Snook, Councilor Payne, Councilor Pinkston to utilize a 3-2 vote to reimagine this project from reconfiguration to remodeling. And I encourage and ask respectfully that reconfiguration become remodeling for the benefit of priorities like affordable housing, for the benefit of priorities like, as Michael Payne has identified on his Facebook page, and I'm going to read it verbatim. Existing commitments to public housing redevelopment, Friendship Court redevelopment, affordable housing fund, supplemental rental assistance, all street milling, paving, transportation infrastructure, all facilities maintenance, HVAC updates combined, non-school reconfiguration, related capital needs, and let's cut to the chase. One of our most important commodities in the city is our human capital. And if we don't start prioritizing our human capital at City Hall by offering salaries and pay and compensation structures that are in line with our competitors, like competing jurisdictions, then we're not going to fill these positions, and or we're going to get human capital that is not the most talented out there. You can't run a city without people in place to run it. And there's vacancies galore. It's a Swiss cheese type of employee totem pole right now. Holes everywhere. I've been meaning to get this off my mind for some time. These school board elections and these board of supervisor and Charlottesville City Council elections are way more important than federal. And it may not be as prioritized or as popular or as cool or as in vogue or as the tip of the tongue of what we see on CNN or Fox or CNBC, but nothing is more important to communities like ours than what is discussed on this network. And in speaking of governance at the local level, a perfect example of this is what the Virginia Senate did, passing a bill in a 21-17 vote scenario, SB 739. that kiboshed, eliminated, and did away with mask mandates in our Virginia schools. And I want to emphasize this. This was a bipartisan effort. And if it wasn't for 10 Democrats in the Virginia Senate, this wouldn't have become a reality. So for everyone that's quick to say it's this party or that party that are pro-mask, that wasn't the case here. 2117 vote, 10 Democrats crossed their aisle, left their party, and voted for the amendment. 9 voted against. The Democrats had 21 votes in the Senate, the Republicans 19. 2 abstained. 10 Democrats crossed the aisle and voted no to mask mandates. I have said this all along on this program. The decision making should be at home with mom and dad. Dad and dad, mom and mom. The parents should determine the best path for their kids, and not suits. You take our home, my wife and I are split on this. I'd like our son to head to school, preschool, without a mask on. It's important to her that he wears one. So we conversate, we deliberate, we contemplate. We look at the numbers, where the trends are going. We talk to people we trust, and we compromise. And in this scenario, it's me who did the compromising, and he wears one. But it's us that make or should make the decision, because we're with our boy all the time. And say what you want, but there's no more polarizing topic in the Commonwealth right now than mask mandates. And say what you want. Democrats crossed the aisle because of midterm elections on the horizon. And say what you want. The Commonwealth last year voted a man that was a Republican into the governor's mansion in a state that is notoriously blue. And the man they voted into the mansion is red. And they did it because of his stance on empowering parents. First, mandates that strip mom and moms, dad and dads, mom and dads of what I think are our rights as the moral compasses, the North Stars, and the caretakers of our most precious commodities, our kids. Don't tell me McCullough, don't tell me Youngkin, don't tell me Northam, don't tell me Peterson or Bell, don't tell me Donovan, don't tell me Hudson, don't tell me Morrissey or Lewis that you know more of what's best for my kid. Because that's going to irk me, irritate me, and piss me off. So here we are, and a fair question should be, what is the state of the union for Charlottesville today? In a budget cycle that is the most impactful one we've seen in a generation. Well, the State of the Union is vulnerable, unknown, precarious, slippery, concerning, we got 5 people on a dais that are going to determine capital improvement projects for one of the most well-known cities in the Commonwealth. And certainly now, unfortunately, one of the most well-known cities in the country because of August 12th, 2017, for a decade to come. And that decision-making is going to happen somewhere between early March and July. If we don't get engaged, then it's going to be our fault if the result is not what we want. You can offer some thoughts and perspectives. And they're coming in quickly. And I'm responding to what I'm getting on my phone and asking if I can mention this on air. And like I always do. Vanessa Parkhill, Queen of Earlysville, I'll get to your comments. Kevin Higgins, I will get to your comments. Carol Thorpe, hello and welcome to the program. One other item that's gaining massive traction on the I Love CVille Network is the Foxfield Bustin balls on booze topic. But first, let me address some items that are on the feed from viewers and listeners. This is from Mr. Jim Hingley, Commonwealth's Attorney of Albemarle County, who came on the show, was it last week, Judah? All these shows run together. I think it was last week, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Tremendous respect for Jim Hingley. We disagree on quite a bit, ideology-wise, but he has a huge heart for this community. This is Jim Hingley's comment. I'll read it verbatim. We would be having a different conversation on school reconfiguration if the Republicans would allow Charlottesville to impose a 1% sales tax for school construction. This issue should be nonpartisan, but Republicans have made it partisan. Sally Hudson, he says, had a bill to give Charlottesville a chance to levy a 1% sales tax for school construction. This would kick in only if approved by a referendum. 5 Republicans killed this bill in subcommittee, Mr. Hingley says. The sales tax would be far preferable to real estate tax increase. Republicans are pro-choice for mass, but they are anti-choice when it comes to allowing Charlottesville citizens to choose to add 1% sales tax for school construction. Those are fair points. My response to that is the regressive nature of taxes in totality, and I know he's going to cringe when he hears that comment, and I don't want to assume, but I feel like I'm getting to know you fairly well, sir, and I know you will cringe when you hear the statement, the regressive nature of taxes. It's up to government to find sources of revenue that are newer, and I understand that he's going to say a sales tax, and he has said a sales tax is preferable to real estate tax increases. And you can make the argument that a sales tax increase will not gentrify the community at the same clip or fast frequency as a real estate tax rate increase, and that's a fair statement. But a sales tax increase is still pinching the pennies of citizens. A sales tax increase still pinches the pennies of citizens. Michael Payne has suggested the concept of a pilot program with UVA. Excuse me, the pilot program with UVA, a payment in lieu of taxes program, where the university, the nonprofit arm of the university, not the foundation, because we learned quite a bit from Neil Williamson on Real Talk this morning about payments made from the foundation to the city of Charlottesville and Albemarle County. But Michael Payne has made a suggestion of a pilot in lieu of taxes program from the nonprofit UVA itself. The university itself in the city of Charlottesville is paying $33,000. Oh, this topic is so dynamic. The university itself is paying $33,000 in its holdings in the city. The on-paper payment for those holdings, if it wasn't a nonprofit, is $9 million. $33K versus $9 million. Now, what we learned today on Real Talk from Neil Williamson, the president of the Free Enterprise Forum, is the foundation, the true money arm of the university, owns $366 million plus of real estate value in Albemarle County, 2022 valuations. And the foundation owns $41,700,000 plus in real estate value in the city of Charlottesville, 2022 valuations. What we learned from Neil Williamson today on Real Talk was the foundation in Albemarle County pays the county $3,100,000 in taxes. The foundation in the city of Charlottesville pays the city $400,000 a year in taxes. So I ask this question. While the university, the nonprofit version of the university, is paying $33,000 on its holdings in the city versus $9 million of on-paper tax value, the foundation is paying a ginormous amount of taxes based on its holdings. And sure, we got to find that revenue somewhere. But we have to indicate, we have to stipulate, we have to identify that the foundation is certainly covering a huge portion of the county of Albemarle's and the city of Charlottesville's tax base. Do we know anyone in Albemarle County, business, individual, entity, that has $366 million in real estate holdings? Do we know anyone in the city of Charlottesville that has $41,700,000 in real estate holdings? Genuinely asking that question. Genuinely asking that question. I'd have to do some research, but do Hunter and Corin and Chris have that? Does Woodard, the Kajin and Ludwig? I don't think so. I mean, maybe. I mean, Kajin and Ludwig are asking 84 for Ix. They ain't going to get 84, and the on-paper value of Ix is not 84. The paper value of Ix is not 84. Mr. Jim Hingley responds by saying this in text message fashion. At the same time as the grocery sales tax is being eliminated, the potential 1% sales tax for school construction would not take as big a bite out of people's wallets. Also, the 1% tax would be subject to local approval by voters. Local control instead of 5 Republicans in Richmond telling our community what it can do. Didn't you just say how important local elections are? Touche, well said, excellent text message from you, sir, Mr. Hingley. It would require a referendum at the local level. And I'm very curious if a sales tax increase would be approved. If memory serves correct, and perhaps this is a question for Sir Neil Williamson, similar referendums have been shot down in the past. One of the platform points of my campaign for Board of Supervisors is incremental tax sources. And that's why I've identified sports tourism and the forgotten Biscuit Run Park as revenue sources that should be prioritized. And that prioritization shouldn't just be done by Albemarle. That prioritization should be done by the city. Because even though these sports touristic endeavors would be in the county of Albemarle, and even though Biscuit Run is in the county of Albemarle, goodness gracious, the financial windfall would benefit Charlottesville in spades. People would be staying in Charlottesville that would be participating in sports tournaments. Concerts and music and food and park entry fees and mountain biking tournaments and camping and streams associated with Biscuit Run and Albemarle would undoubtedly trickle over to the city of Charlottesville with restaurants and meals tax and lodging tax and retail taxes. Carol Thorpe watching the program, CT, welcome to the show. We love when you watch the program, Carol Thorpe. Carol, where do you live? We've, and you don't have to tell me the exact address. We've been dubbing or naming or nicknaming some of our key contributors to the program as you know, for instance, Vanessa Parkhill, the Queen of Earlysville, or Joanne Mackey, the Queen of Keswick, or Neil Williamson, the King of Content. Carol, your contributions have earned a moniker of similar sort. She says this: I have never met a Democrat who saw a tax they did not like. Period. Tax, tax, and tax some more is their solution to everything. Your instincts are correct, Jerry. We should always be earnestly pursuing other means of generating revenue. And that there is in response to Mr. Hingley's comments that have come on the feed, that from Carol Thorpe. Queen of Earlysville, Vanessa Parkhill, has this perspective. If school reconfiguration and other high-dollar school projects should have been a priority, the city should have been bolstering its capital improvement funds to save for those projects instead of continuing to add increased funding for other programs, especially in years when they had a surplus. Amen. Amen. I feel the same way. I feel the same way. And unfortunately, our current counselors are paying for the sins of their predecessors. Kevin Higgins has this comment: Kevin, you deserve a moniker. Where general vicinity do you live, Mr. Kevin Higgins? You deserve a moniker for every contribution you have made on this show over the course of a significant period of the calendar. Kevin Higgins, and I'm going to dub Jim Hinchley needs a nickname. Can we go to the two-shot? What's the nickname we need for Mr. Jim Hinchley, who we know we have tremendous respect for? The King of the Court? The King of the Court. Okay. If Neil Williamson is the King of Content, and Vanessa Parkhill is the Queen of Earlysville, and Joanne Mackey is the Queen of Keswick, Jim Hinchley is the King of the Court.
Okay. I'm not sure why you're bringing me on for that, but that sounds good.
Carol Thorpe lives in the Jack Jewett district of Albemarle County. The Queen of Jack Jewett. We need to start writing these down. Can we keep a running tab, please, sir, of the following? Vanessa Parkhill, Queen of Keswick. Vanessa Parkhill, Queen of Earlysville. Joanne Mackey, Queen of Keswick. Carol Thorpe, the Queen of Jack Jewett. Jim Hinchley, the King of the Court. Neil Williamson, the King of Content. Kevin Higgins lives in Greenwood, the furthest tip of Western Albemarle. Contributes regularly. Kevin Higgins, the King of Greenwood. I fired those off at you pretty quickly, didn't I?
Yeah, I do not have them.
Okay. We'll go over them in post-show production meeting. Judah Wickhauer. He says this: I coach my son's basketball team, and players are required to wear masks while running up and down the court for over an hour. I feel like I'm letting these kids down the entire game. I leave knowing I'm wrong to not fight this. I feel bad about myself as their coach, and I always will. It should not be this way. Ugh. A messy situation. This election, these midterms matter so much. And the 2023 elections are hugely important. Counselor Snook, Payne, and McGill seats, councilors come up in 2023. And on the Board of Supervisors, it's Malik, Price, and Lepisto Kirtley that come up in 2023. So in Charlottesville City, you're talking majority, 3 of 5 come up in 2023. In County of Albemarle, 3 of 6 come up. Hugely important elections. A couple of other items out of my notebook that I want to get to. Last night, the Virginia women's basketball team forfeited a basketball game. This is the lowest point in Virginia women's basketball history right now. Not only has the team not won a basketball game since December. In fact, I'm going to give you the exact time Virginia women's basketball last won. UVA women's basketball last won a game on, good Lord, is that right? Sunday, December 5th against George Washington. UVA women's basketball has lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 straight games. 13 straight games because they forfeited yesterday. The Wahoos forfeited due to mechanical and aircraft crew staffing issues. This is the 7th UVA women's basketball game this season to be postponed or canceled. UVA women's basketball is 3-19 overall and 0-12 in ACC play. UVA has not won a game since December 5th. Debbie Ryan's program is a shadow of its former self. A shadow of its former self. The coaching staff of Virginia, to say they are underperforming is like saying we need oxygen and H2O to live. A change must be made. And then 2 other items that I'd like to get to today on the program. Please. And then we'll get to your comments. Add your comments in the feed now if you would like to hear anything on air. Mayor Lloyd Snook will join us on the show on Monday. Mayor Lloyd Snook on the show on Monday to talk about this budget. Foxfield is limiting booze intake at its popular steeplechase horse race in the fall. Verbatim from officials who released the statement Wednesday, for increased safety on race day, for each tailgating spot, single car, the maximum amount of alcohol allowed is 2 750 milliliter bottles of hard liquor, 3 bottles of wine, and 3 6-packs of beer. Still a hell of a lot of booze, mind you. A lot of booze that each car can bring in. To put it in perspective, Daniel Kaufman on the I Love CVille Network. Daniel Kaufman is the owner of Public Fish and Oyster. One of the best happy hours in Charlottesville is at Public Fish and Oyster on West May. And Kaufman does it right. Kaufman very much does it right. He had these comments. And if you are not part of the I Love CVille group on Facebook, I encourage you very much to head over there and join the group. The engagement and the participation and the level of contribution from folks in the community is just out of this world, and I daily learn things from the group and from participants, like literally daily. See if I can find Daniel Kaufman's comment. He puts in perspective how much, here it is. 375 milliliters of liquor, 3/4 a bottle of wine, and 4.5 beers per person in each vehicle. Still get you feeling pretty toasted, right? They cut down on booze, but each person in the car can still have 375 milliliters of liquor, 3/4 a bottle of wine, and 4.5 beers per person.
All of those, or is that like...
That's per person, per car, per tailgate.
I know, but each person can have a 375 and the beers and all the other stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I wouldn't be worried.
That puts it in perspective. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying, why bother?
Well, the only concern you have is if they employ... JoJo Robertson says the Charlottesville High School girls basketball team could beat UVA women's basketball. If you employ additional security to check these vehicles as they head into Foxfield, it's going to add overhead to the event, which is going to make the event more expensive, which is going to create somewhat of a community event and even more prioritize it for wealthy people. This is essentially by by policing booze at Foxfields, you're gentrifying Foxfields. Because you're going to need more security to check the cars, and security is a big piece of that overhead, so ticket prices are going to go up. Like, this is the real estate tax rate increases on rooftops in Charlottesville are synonymous with security checks of vehicles at Foxfields, and that they gentrify the event.
But seriously, how do you check an entire car? If
You're gonna have to hire people.
Yeah, but I mean, let's say you've got a car with, driver, 4 or 5 people inside. I mean, what? You're asking some random security guard to do the math on how many liters there can be in the car, not to mention how many beers, and then what are they going to do? Check underneath the chairs, check underneath the seats.
I think that's what they're going to do.
I mean, that's
labor intensive.
So you make sure you get to Foxfield at least 2 hours before the big show, so that
it's going to make the lines even longer.
It's going to take forever to get through if they got to check underneath the
floorboards,
underneath the seats.
Yeah.
Make sure there's not another hidden igloo drink cooler somewhere. And damn.
Kevin Higgins says, I think carpooling to Foxfields is over. More cars than ever before. He's right. He's right. Carol Thorpe, the queen of the Jack Jewett district, is giving props to Vanessa Parkhill, the queen of Earlysville. Bravo, Vanessa Parkhill. 3 of the current counselors knew the school reconfiguration project was coming, if only good faith practice. Why didn't any of them suggest earmarking last year's budget surplus to the school reconfiguration project? Frankly, this budget plight is why the West Main Streetscape project was kiboshed. All right, that's the Friday edition of the show. Any other comments you guys want in? Put them in the feed. Lloyd Snook on Monday. Scott Aaronworth, the king of Virginia Beach, is on a food tour of Charlottesville. The biggest foodie in Charlottesville is an attorney from Virginia Beach, Scott Aaronworth, the king of Virginia Beach. He says, I want to give a shout out to Laura Fauner and Siren for dinner last night. It was dynamite. He went to Taste Shack. He went to Siren. He went to the Virginian. He said he also saw Daniel Kaufman last night for happy hour at Public Fish and Oyster. And he took a great Purvello class today. All we're trying to do is to utilize social media to inform you of topics. And I hear daily from viewers and listeners that Judah and I and this show and these shows we do are their source of news in the community. Daily. And as the Daily Progress has prioritized its digital paywall, what's happening is it's getting less readership, unfortunately, because many think content should be free in the interwebs. And as its readership declines, because corporate needs to run the paper in the black, which any business has to run in the black to survive, this network is becoming the source of news. Certainly as television becomes less and less of an appointment-based television. Those are just facts and reality. Judah, anything you want to add today before we skedaddle? No. Nothing?
No, I'm good.
I value your opinion.
Is there anything you'd like to hear about? Anything you'd like to know?
I just want to hear if you want to hear something.
I can't think of anything.
What to say?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Got any plans for the weekend?
Let's see. Same plans as just about everyone, I think.
Oh, you're gonna hang out with your 3-year-old son, take your 2 German Shepherds for a walk, and play t-ball in the front lawn?
Is that what you're going to do on Sunday afternoon?
You said same.
Is that what you're going to do on Sunday afternoon?
Oh, you meant the Super Bowl. Okay, got it. Understood. He's the jack of all trades. He's Judah Wickhauer. I'm Jerry Miller. This is the I Love CVille Show. We'll see you on Monday with Lloyd Snook. Take care.